Hello everybody. So we just finished making the whole grain bread together, and I figured I would bring you guys along and make dinner with me. I'm gonna make some beef vegetable soup. When I make vegetable soup, I really like to add as many vegetables as I possibly can into the soup. So I started with a little bit of green beans that I had left over in the fridge. So that's what the pile is here on the board. And then I'm going to cut up some red bell pepper, and I had a small zucchini in the fridge too. My family's not very fond of zucchini, so I usually cut it really small, and they don't even notice that it's in there, just to add the extra nutrition. I pre-washed all my vegetables, including my carrots here, and I'm just giving them a light peel. When I'm doing my vegetables, all the scraps I keep in a plastic Ziploc bag, and I keep them in my freezer. And I use the scraps to make chicken stock, technically chicken vegetable stock if you want to be technical. And it adds so much flavor to my stock, so I always keep the remnants from vegetables and use them for stock. It's a good way to use the waste and it not go in the garbage. Then I just chop it all nice and fine with like the rest of the vegetables and get ready to make the soup. These were just the fresh vegetables that I'm adding. I also add some frozen ones that I have in my freezer from when I had a garden as well, and some frozen boughten vegetables as well. I try to sneak in nutrition whenever I can, so I added a big handful of spinach to this soup as well. Nobody even noticed. Okay. So I'm going to start this with ground beef. If you want to use steak or a different kind of cut of meat for this, you can. But I'm going to use ground beef. I find ground beef a little bit more flavorful in a soup like this. So I'm using lean ground beef. I love this little meat masher. So I'm just going to break it up. I think this is going to go perfectly with the whole grain bread that we just made. Okay, let that simmer for a minute. I'm going to add some garlic. I like a lot of garlic. It adds a lot of flavor to my soup. So I'm probably going to add 2 big tablespoons here. Let me put some water in this. Try to get most of the garlic out of the jar here. Okay. Just breaking up the meat. Okay. So I have some things from the freezer here. Some onions. I like to have pre-chopped onions in the freezer. Same with celery. I don't use celery a ton, so I like to have it frozen. And I have a little bit of kale left from my garden from a couple years ago I'm going to use. Okay, so let's add some of the celery. I like to add basically whatever vegetables I have in the freezer or in the fridge into this soup. It doesn't have to be specific. So I'm going to add the rest of the kale. I'm going to add a ton of onions. Actually, Let's add the rest of the onions. And I cook it all together with the beef. Okay, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to get a spoon here. So this is right around the time I would like to add a little bit of beef bouillon to this. So I usually use Better Than bouillon. It's pretty good. I actually don't have that much left in here, so won't be too much. Maybe about a tablespoon. I would usually use about 2. This soup is going to simmer for a little bit though, so the flavors will melt pretty good together. Let me put this celery back in the freezer. Okay, so I'm going to add the carrots. I chopped up a potato off camera too. So I'm going to add the potato in here too. It's just a yellow gold potato. Those around a bit. If you want this soup to be a little thicker, you could add some flour in right around now, but that part doesn't matter to me too much. Okay, this is a new can opener, so I gotta see how well I can use this. Oh, there we go. Oh, that was super easy. Okay. So I'm going to add in a can of white navy beans, basically beans and tomato sauce. This is the perfect kind of soup to add beans to, especially if you want to camouflage them from your kids. Okay, so we're going to let that simmer for a couple minutes and then we're going to add the rest of the vegetables. Okay, so if you wanted this to be a brothy soup, I would go with just beef broth, but I want this to have like a tomato flavor to it. So we're going to use some tomato sauce. But first, I have some chopped up green beans here that I was chopping yesterday, some peppers, some zucchini, and some spinach. It's just stuff I had left over in the fridge. I'm just going to put it all in. And then I think, let me get one more ingredient. I think I'm going to put in some frozen corn. My goal when I make these kind of soups is to try and get as many vegetables in here as possible. Okay, let's give that a stir. I'll show you the colorfulness of this. Look how beautiful that is before we add any of the juices. That looks beautiful. Very healthy too. Okay, so let's add some pepper first. Tiny bit of salt because we already added some bouillon. I am going to add some thyme, just a pinch, and some basil, I think. Let me see if I can find it here. Some basil. Probably about a teaspoon of each. Okay, now I'm going to start with the tomato sauce. This is about half of one of these jars, so probably, what is this? 1.2 liters, so probably about 700 milliliters. For beef vegetable soup, I like to have a tomato base to it. That's my favorite. My family's favorite too. I always like to add the base first and then add the broth. So you can use any kind of broth you want. Today I just happen to have some low sodium beef broth. Normally I would use chicken or vegetable. So now we're just going to add some broth. I'll add probably about half of this container. And then I'm going to let it simmer for a few hours. I made dinner quite early. So we're going to let this simmer for a bit, maybe an hour. And then we'll see if we need to add more liquid. So that's what it's looking like before we start simmering it. And we'll give it a taste test after it's simmered for a bit. So after about an hour, I'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so the soup's been simmering for quite a while. Let me give you a close-up look. So it's got a nice thicker texture here. I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the beef broth just so it's a little bit thinner. We don't want it quite stew texture here. Looks delicious though. I'm just going to add the rest of the container here. A lot of the liquid boiled down. There we go. Now it's the perfect texture. So I'm going to give you a close-up look of the final product here. Actually, let's taste this first. See if this needs any seasoning first. Oh, it does. It does need seasoning. Needs a little bit more salt. I can taste the basil and the thyme. It's good. Needs a lot more pepper. So I learned this trick. Just kind of pour it onto my spoon here. That's better. You could add whatever seasonings you want on top of this. If you wanted it more tomatoey, you could add more tomato. Okay, let me show you the finished texture here. So this is the final soup. Doesn't that look delicious? So good. So everybody, I want to thank you all for coming along with me, making dinner with me. I know it's a fairly simple soup, but I've come to realize that not everybody knows how to make soup from scratch. So I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you next time. Bye.